Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on what part of the world you're tuning in from. Thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. I'm here today with James Quinn, although for most folks he goes by Jimmy. I think I stopped calling him James about two sentences into our first conversation. I got introduced to Jimmy by Keith Hole. Some of you may remember Keith was on the show around this time last year, I think about. And Jimmy is the past president of IOSH. And I was going to get him to maybe start off by just talking a bit about what IOSH is for those of us in North America who've heard about it but don't necessarily know, when did it start? How many countries is it working within now? And, some of the plans, the scope, some of the things you might have done when you were there, Jimmy. At least that's what I thought the show would be about when I was talking with Keith. But as I got talking with Jimmy and I started finding out about the early parts of his career, these mega construction projects that he managed and managed to very little harm. I'm not saying totally zero, but he did it without a big stick. And that, for me, that's always been incredibly intriguing because, as we all know, there's a lot of negative aspects to the big stick as well. So, Jimmy, first of all, thanks very much for taking the time to join us. How have you been since the last time I talked to you?
Yeah, very well, Larry. Thanks very much. It's been an exciting and then a sort of a tiring, exciting time, and then a restful, sort of non-eventful time, and now a sort of restful, exciting time. So worked that one out, and it's been good. Handed over the presidency on the 16th of November to the new president, Louise Hosking, and then became the immediate past president straight after. Took 6 weeks off and have just started hitting social media again and starting to go through all the promises I made as president and catching up on those promises and making sure those promises come to fruition through this year. So yeah, it's been a busy, then quiet, and then busy, restful time.
Yeah. Well, I think it was about back in November when I last sort of saw you on a webinar. It was a regional IOSH, chapter sort of meeting, and you and the new president, Louise, I believe her name is.
Louise Hosking, yeah.
Yeah, Louise. You were both on the show to give Keith his IOSH, the IOSH President Award
That
and
was
some.
wonderful for you to attend, Larry. So special. I think you and Mike
Well,
both attended, did you not?
Well, yeah, both Mike and I were on there as well too. But it was also it was one of those incredibly bittersweet things because Keith's wife had passed away suddenly a couple of weeks
True.
before that. So
Yeah.
even though it should have been a celebration, as Keith said in the first 10 words, you know, I'm not up for a party right now. I can't, I'm paraphrasing, but basically,
No, you're right.
yeah. So I was really glad we were all there, actually, in terms of, being able to whatever support it is. It's not much, but we were there, and it was also good, that I think Keith was selected as well too. I thought that was great. But if you could just the 40,000-foot view of IOSH, just for, like I said, I think there's probably a lot of people in North America they've definitely heard of IOSH, Jimmy, for sure. But if somebody said, well, what's their charter, what's their mandate, when did they start, how many members, I think a lot of us in North America would not necessarily know. So, I mean, I know what I want to hear about how you got started. Nobody starts off as the president of IOSH, right? So, and I'm really intrigued with especially, big construction projects because I've heard this from many people. You've got to manage that with a big stick. It's the only way, And I don't agree with that. I believe nobody's ever trying to get hurt. We should be able to find a way to do it without beating them over the head, if you know what I mean. Like, we should be able to manage this to really zero harm. And I think that includes not firing people. A lot of people. There might be a few. But tell us a bit about IOSH, if you can. Give us the...
Yeah, IOSH it's the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, and they have close links, I believe, with ISSA. IOSH tried to come to Canada every year. There's a big conference. Obviously, they couldn't for the last couple of years. And as soon as you're made president, you're made an honorary member. Was it the Association of Engineers, American Engineers? I'll need to remember.
It's professionals now, American Society of Safety Professionals. But
American Society of Safety Professionals, yeah. And basically, and there's an ongoing relationship there. And that was one of the lovely things when I took over as president. I got that membership through. Anyway, started in 45, worked its way through. There's been a plethora of presidents since then. I'm amazingly one of only two full career service people that have become president. There was Tim Briggs, an amazing legend of a person who was president a couple of years before me, and lovely to see veterans coming through. And so we have branches globally in 130 countries worldwide. We have over 48,000 members globally, Larry. We can go to places like the UK, of course, but we've got members in Canada, America, South America, the Asian Pacific, India, West Africa, which is an amazing one chaired by a good friend of mine, Dapo Omalade, who I first met in 2008, and who assigned me a bodyguard when I went to Nigeria I'd say a bodyguard. He assigned me a guide to look after me when I was traveling around Nigeria. It was a wonderful experience. But yeah,
I'm going there to speak at a conference March 17th to 19th. Do I need a bodyguard, Jimmy?
No, I don't think you do. I think he was just being very careful because it was the first time he'd ever had a trainer in his company. So it's a lovely country.
At least he didn't say, "Oh no, Larry, you'll need at least 2 or 3 bodyguards."
No, not at all.
At least that was.
I mean, it's a lovely country. Okay. Yeah, Lagos is lovely place.
I'm really, really looking forward to going. That's I've heard I've heard some stories here and there, but I mean, I lived in Los Angeles and I lived in New York City, so I mean, how bad could it really be? Right?
No. It's like any other city in the world, Larry. There's good and bad, but it's a lovely place. People are amazing, such kindness. It was really absolutely wonderful for me, Larry. So I enjoyed every single part of it. So IOSH, as I said, in over 130 countries, we have a council of 45 people who speak for the membership. We have branches in the UK, and we have branches in all these countries, most of these countries globally. We have branches or districts. So yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. It's a massive family, a massive organisation, and something I've been proud of to have been the ambassadorial lead for in the last year.
Okay. For things like the new ISO standards and stuff like that, how much does IOSH get involved in those kinds of things, Jimmy?
Well, of course, we are the Institution of Occupational Safety, so we have a say. Not so much a say, but we have an advisory. So we advise on a lot of these papers. We lobby. We create opportunities. We speak up. We raise awareness of. We take action on lots of things. So, for instance, the fire safety, IOSH has been heavily involved in that. But we're not a political or an accredited or an executive body. We are a charity, all said and done. But we're a charity that has 48,000 practitioners globally. We have a voice, and we use that voice through our board of trustees and our senior leadership team at IOSH.
Right. I think very, very, very influential. I just wasn't sure just how directly tied IOSH was to things like, ISO 45001 and stuff like that. I would have thought a lot of advisory comments, recommending people to be on advisory councils and so on and so forth.
Well, we have our own advisory committees as well. We have a lot of different standing committees where we advise on a lot of these things. We have a lot of groups as well, Larry. So we have the fire safety group, we have the logistics group, we have the construction group, and we key in. So in our construction group, for instance, we're the biggest group, and I'm the vice chair of that group, alongside a good friend of mine, Malcolm Shields. And we have an amazing committee. But on that committee, we have a member of the health and safety executive that sits on that committee with us. So not saying we get the inside track, but we assist through that as well. And of course, being an IOSH member and being on the IOSH council and having been in IOSH construction, as a health and safety professional, I'm also on other health and safety committees throughout construction and throughout industry. So I get the opportunity to see.
Hello? Jimmy? Hello, Jimmy. Well, looks like he's a bit frozen there at his end. I was just gonna just make sure I understood the reach with IOSH in terms of, you mentioned fire safety, obviously industrial safety, as you mentioned, construction and logistics and those sorts of things. My goodness. I mean, I can see me moving and I can't see Jimmy moving. So now I'm a little concerned. He's frozen in time.
Hey, Larry, producer
Hey,
Mike
Mike.
in the background here. It looks like he's
nothing
lost
like
his
being the
connection.
nothing like being the technical guy when the internet freezes, eh?
Yeah, hopefully he'll come back shortly.
Yeah, isn't it ironic? We've all the times we've been on the different calls with him and everything like that. Of course, never had an IT problem, and then the first time you try to do something live, you can have this happen.
Technology can be our best friend and our worst enemy.
Well, I mean, folks have said, why don't you just record these shows and then send them out to us, in the appropriate time zone and things. I'm saying, well, first of all, if the people sign up, they can get the recording and listen to it whenever they want. So there's that aspect of it. But there's
Hey, had a power cut. We just had a power cut.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, you sound fine now. All I was just asking the audience, Jimmy, if you could just tell, we heard fire safety, and we know obviously.
I can just see, sorry, Larry, I can just see that Michelle Pitkin, a colleague of mine and a council member, has just popped up. I can see Mike has said hi. Michelle is the vice chair of the IOSH. She's wonderful. Michelle's the vice chair of the IOSH fire safety group.
Yes, I know, and I think a certified Safe Start trainer, if I'm not mistaken as well. She went to the trainer certification course with Keith back in the fall. At least I think it was. I think it's the same Michelle.
Yeah,
and did very well at it as well too. She had some great stories. Jimmy, I was going to ask you: does IOSH also extend, if you will, its reach to driving safety, home safety, and workplace safety? Is it all three of those things, or is it primarily workplace safety and fire safety?
Yeah, I mean, it's workplace safety, fire safety. They have lots of different courses starting from level 1, level 2, level 3, Larry. So, and they're developing a level 6 diploma course that's in the mix to see, the mix in there somewhere. When that'll come out, I don't actually know. But in terms of there's level 1, managing safely, working safely, level 2, level 3's courses. There's a great level 3 IOSH course online now that competes with other organizations that deliver level 3 health and safety courses. So yeah, there's lots of different courses, but nothing in the way that you're just talking about now. No.
Well, that was sort of the in the Canada and the United States, we also have like the National Safety Council, Canada Safety Council, and so they look, a lot at workplace safety, certainly, professional development conferences, chapters, things like that throughout North America.
You've got ROSPA. You've got ROSPA and things like that as well in the UK, Larry, haven't you? You've got the Royal Society, and you've got the British Safety Council as well. So there's lots of other organisations that do that sort of thing as well.
Okay. Well, and I was just trying to, see if I could sort of get every, where exactly is IOSH in that mix?
We're in the mix. We're in the mix. We offer lots of other parts as well, and we've got such an amazing plethora of resources within the IOSH website as well that can be used. So whereas there might not be a course per se, there'll be lots of resources that can be downloaded and utilised by any IOSH member, and that's a great thing, Larry.
Right. Okay. So, in terms of well, I mean, I'll let you just give us the elevator pitch. I mean, in terms of safety professional in North America, why should they join IOSH? Why should they be interested in IOSH? And certainly at a bare minimum, at least keeping up with what IOSH is doing online, newsletters, things like that. Could you give us just a few minutes about that?
Yeah, I mean, my first answer to that, Larry, would be, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you not want to be part of a family of 48,000 or 47,999 other health and safety practitioners? If I don't have an answer to a question, in fact, Michelle, who's online, I've emailed Michelle a few times on a question that I didn't know the answer to. And so why would you not take advantage of that network? The resources, especially going through COVID, were second to none. You've got an organization that works hand in hand with the ILO, WHO. They've got a letter of a memorandum of understanding with the WHO and the ILO, or I think it's the ILO now as well. So you're part of a massive family. It depends how you look at your health and safety. It depends how you want to develop in terms of your CPD. And it depends what you want your knowledge to be of health and safety. If you want a universal global knowledge and understand what's going on in all the different countries in the world and not just America or Canada, then why would you not want to reach out to some of the most amazing health and safety practitioners on the globe?
No, I agree. I agree totally. I mean, I think that you're right. Why wouldn't you is probably a better way to answer it. I don't know if it would have been a correct way to ask the question. Really, it might have been.
You asked the question very well.
Might have been a little too presumptuous to say. Can you tell these knuckleheads out there why they you shouldn't be? But really, well, I think. I've talked with a number of magazine editors for safety publications in North America, and they've sort of conceded that as well. In other words, there does tend to be, and it may not be any different in the UK and Europe, but there does tend to be a little cloistered or a bit myopic in terms of, your viewpoint. In other words, if your viewpoint doesn't extend past the borders of your country, eventually it affects your perspective. And I think the more reach and the more appreciation, at least certainly personally, when I started traveling around the world, I started realizing that there were a lot of good ideas, and they didn't all necessarily come from North America. And there was also, in terms of safety excellence, there were some really, really well-run companies out there as well too that we could be learning from. And so I started, best I can to try to share some of that perspective with the North American audience, and also share some North American perspective with the folks globally in India and in Africa and in Europe and the UK as well too. So I agree with you. Like, why wouldn't you extend your perspective and see what everybody else is doing? And obviously, if there's some good ideas out there, quite often they're very, they're free for the taking, right? Is there anything that you could tell us just, on the horizon next year or two that IOSH is embarking on or getting into that you find really exciting or that you think's really interesting?
Well, there's lots of things going on at the moment. I mean, one of the big things that's happening at the moment is we've got our Volunteers Network conference happening over the next 2 weeks, 2 days over 2 weeks on the virtual platform. And that's going extraordinarily well. So we've got the presidential team involved in that, members of council involved in that, and reaching out to the members. And a lot of that sort of follows on from the coffee mornings I started last year, which engaged the membership, because it was quite selfish of me, Larry. I was thinking, how am I going to be a president that can engage as the ambassadorial lead when, in fact, I can't speak to anyone? And I thought, well, in order for me to do what I'm going to do, I am going to reach out to the membership and use every opportunity I can on every single channel, on any social media. And it just became this amazing thing. Hundreds of people over the period of a few months, hundreds and hundreds of emails. So that's continuing on now with the new president, which is a great thing. We've also got the Catch the Wave, which is a new media stream coming out from IOSH, talking about people and sustainability and what people should be doing now and what we should be doing. So that's another wonderful thing.
That sounds, I mean, first of all, pardon the pun, that's very catchy though. Catch
yeah, it is, isn't it?
Catch the
actually,
wave.
it's quite funny. There was a narrative today, and I added a few more points to the slides today, because there was some of the narrative I thought we could have done better, and I actually used, whether rightly or wrongly, said it was not so much catching a wave, but catching the tsunami, because it's going to take hold, and it really is. It's wonderful. I mean, this piece of work that IOSH have done in terms of the sustainability, and it's talking about harnessing the power of social sustainability for a new world of work. So when we're talking about productive people, Larry, committed people, sustainable people, and we're talking now about a truly regenerative capitalism starting with people, and that's what Catch the Wave is all about.
That really does sound interesting. Is there anything else? I don't know where people could go to find out more info about that, Jimmy.
Again, it's on the IOSH website, Larry, www.iosh.com, IOSH.com, and you should be able to access those. You don't have to be a member. You should be able to access a lot of those resources. What I'll do straight after this, I'll send you a copy of it, Larry, as well. I'll send you and make a copy of it after this.
Yeah. Well, maybe Mike, I'm sure everybody, though. I mean, IOSH.com. I mean, I guess if you can't figure
www.iosh.com, and you'll be able to find it there.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really interesting. And then I guess just, I don't want to sound so impatient about getting back to the beginning, but in terms of the longer term time frame or horizon, Jimmy, beyond say the next 2 years, where's IOSH trying to get to, or what sort of future state vision are you guys looking at? Just a bit of the long term.
Yeah, I mean, well, at the moment, obviously, we're coming out of the work 2022, and that's going to be sort of finishing quite clearly this year. So about a year and a half ago, in fact, even so much as into my year, we got a great new chair coming in. His name is Peter Bohan. Not Peter Bohan, Peter... Oh, golly, that's so embarrassing. I can't remember Peter's second name at the moment. But we've got our new.
You could have just said we got Pete coming in.
We just said Peter. But
you could have rolled with it, right?
Yeah, Ben Legg or Michelle Pitkin. Michelle will let me know in a minute. And Peter's a wonderful, wonderful person. So basically, he is the new chair of the Board of Trustees. And on top of that, he is very, very collaborative. And what I tried to do and what I did as president in my year was, as president, you were always invited to the Board of Trustees. And I said, well, wait a minute. I'm president, ambassadorial lead, but I'm also the chair of council. The chair of council should not just, the chair of council should be at the board of trustees meeting to challenge, whether rightly or wrongly, with the board of trustees, who we challenge to keep the IOSH leadership team straight and narrow. And he actually absolutely agrees. Said, Jimmy, you're absolutely right. So it's the chair of council now that will be invited, not the president. And then we created a vice chair from the president-elect, things that hadn't been done ever in the whole history of IOSH. And we sit at that table now. We write a report. The chair writes a report with the vice chair and the help of council, and that goes there now. And he sat down and he said, well, why am I here with my board of trustees and the senior leadership team? Why are we not using council and all of council to create a plan that's for the members? That's a great idea, Peter. Let's do that. So we're in the midst of that at the moment as well. And the new, whether you get Louise on the show or not, the new chair of council is now developing that plan. I don't see so much of it because as immediate past president, I therefore forfeit the right as chair and vice chair. I'm a council member, so I hear alongside everyone else. But there's lots of plans. There's a new plan coming out. It's going to be very inclusive, lots of diversity, and it's going to be a lot of sustainability in there as well, Larry.
Okay. Well, certainly, maybe in a bit of time, Louise could come on the show and sort of tell us how it's going with, I
think she would like that.
Yeah, well, and
it's Peter Bonfield, not Peter Bohan. Peter Bonfield. I nearly got it right there. Peter Bohan used to be the vice chair of IOSH in Oman. So,
here's how you do it, Jimmy. Oh yeah, Pete. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. I'll
remember that. Every day's a learning day, Larry. Thank you.
Oh God. Oh no. I'm just like, I know it's cliche, but I mean, really good with faces, not so good with names. And so unfortunately, coping strategies over the years, really, instead of just doing a better job of trying to remember the name instead of feeling the handshake when you meet somebody. It's it's all that.
You always got to repeat the name 3 times, haven't you, Larry?
Well, or something. Yeah. I actually went to a session once at a safety conference put on by a guy named Backwards Bob, who's set the record for being able to say more things backwards and so on and so forth than anybody. And he can remember all kinds of stuff. And he showed us he showed us tricks for how you'd remember somebody. He shows a picture, said this guy's name is Jimmy. You can see he's got a really narrow nose. So picture driving your 4x4 up Jimmy's nose and you can't get the doors open to get out. And then he says, now you're never going to forget his name. And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go through all that when I'm looking somebody in the eye and shaking their hand and trying to picture their 4x4 door up their nose and stuff. So I'm unfortunately no better off in terms of people's names after that session than I was before. But anyhow, a lot of interesting things going on with IOSH, and I know, as I said at the very beginning, lots of folks in Canada and the United States know of IOSH, but I'm not sure if they really knew exactly, does it more like the ASSP, more like the National Safety Council? How does it function in the international community? I would imagine there were even a few folks who might have thought it was solely a UK thing and didn't realize.
That is a real problem for us, Larry. I mean, it is very, very much like the ASSP, but that is a massive issue for us as well, because we do tend to think, a lot of people do tend to think of us being UK centric, and we're not. We're an absolutely global entity, and we're doing a lot of hard work to get that done. But you're right, that is a constant, not constant worry, it's a constant challenge for us to have that keep going as that global family, if I'm being very, very honest.
Well, I mean, it's even I'm sure right within the name American Society of Safety Professionals, that doesn't necessarily help as you're trying to extend your reach around the world and get good messaging, good information out to people and stuff like that. You'll obviously get folks thinking it's primarily American, right? And yet they've got chapters in Nigeria and in India and in Kuwait and all over the place, right? So
yes,
I think both organizations maybe struggle a bit with how strong their roots are in terms of the international. But I think IOSH certainly is way ahead, way out there, and it's 48,000 folks all over the place. And I know I'm going to be speaking at some IOSH conferences around the globe in the next year. So
good.
I'll know more. I'll know more and be more involved with it myself going forward for sure. But as I said, and in the marketing blurb as well, Jimmy, nobody starts off as the president of IOSH, at least hopefully. And I don't know exactly how far back you were with the military. So were you with the military before you got into construction and safety, or
Absolutely.
At the same time? Okay, so it was from the.
So I joined the army. I joined the army as a young lad in 1987, Larry, and I served until 2011. But from 2007 to 2011, I saw the real value of health and safety. And I talk about it a lot now. Whenever I speak, and I speak on lots of different platforms for veterans, not as an official ambassador, but I won an amazing award in December there, just for being an advocate for veterans on the UK Armed Forces Business Awards at the near the O2 in December, which was amazing. I was absolutely humbled to receive that award. But I always say, and this is why I went into health and safety in the last 4 years, is that you're halfway there. And I don't steal that, Larry, because that's going to be the title of my book. I think if ever I get to be able to write one, it's going to be called Halfway There, because I say that
it's a brilliant title, by the way. I love it.
Thanks, mate. Well, coming from someone who is an author, I'll take that. That halfway there is my analogy for all veterans, because we're already halfway there. We have the soft skills, the power skills, the people facing, which turns into client, which turns into supervisors, which turns into operatives. And then all you need to do is teach us whatever it is we need to know. So if we need to drive
discipline,
the training,
personal discipline, punctuality. I mean, we've got a great number of veterans on our consulting staff in North America. Tim Page, Pete Petroni, Chris LaSalle, and Derek. I mean, I think there might be more, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to leave somebody out if they're listening to this. Here I go again, Pete, right? Yeah. So
yeah. Don't forget Peter.
But always there's a discipline to even the way they train, the timekeeping in the class, things like that. Gary Higby's another veteran. Although once Gary gets telling stories, all bets are off on the time, but nobody cares.
I'll challenge him to that. I'll challenge him on that one. I tell some great stories.
Oh, well, no, I know you do too. And that's the thing, right? And of course, when it all comes down to it, that's really what we want to hear, right? So tell if you can. I mean, we've got a fair bit of time, I guess, 15 minutes or so before we should probably open it up for questions, Jimmy. But I was fascinated when you and Keith and you started talking about the construction projects that you worked on and how you managed them, the communication processes that you implemented and so on. But more than anything, that it was done positively. So I don't want to try to script it for you, but if you could probably, take us back close to the beginning, from when you got out of the military and into this, and then sort of just carry us through to some of the projects that you worked on and how they went.
Yeah, I mean, life for me didn't really start in construction until I hit the Middle East, Larry. In my projects that I worked on after leaving the army, going into health and safety training and small projects, I always used that halfway there ethos and engagement with people and creating small teams and conversations. So I knew I was always good at speaking to people and creating opportunities and talking through and discussing that, always starting from a position of yes and then collaborating how to get there is key, and not being black and white, being grey, and being able to work
I
through
remember that from the conversation.
Yeah.
About being, I haven't stolen that yet and put it into one of my articles, so you're still good.
Oh, good.
But no, I won't either. But it's brilliant, right? Because there's so many people in health and safety that wanted to be black and white, and with the state connections and stuff, I'm saying, yeah, but it's not black and white where the rubber meets the road in the real world, you guys. No. You can fly back to your university and say it's black and white, but I guarantee you get down to the trenches, you'll be hard pressed to figure out what color of gray it is some days.
Exactly. And so one of the things that I said to you before was that when I went to the Middle East and Multiplex took me on, I was very lucky that Matt Hewitt, who was the project director at the time, said, Jimmy, I don't want a health and safety manager up in construction. I've got two of the best construction men ever, Dave Barnes and Lee Ainsley. And he said, they will teach you about construction. I want you to build me a team. That's your strength. And I know you know health and safety, but we'll teach you health and safety in construction like you've never seen before. It'll be embedded in you in a year. And I was 4 years there. And he said, I want you to build me a team from scratch. How many people do you want in this team, Matt? That's for you to decide. And that's for you to argue with the commercial team. So I took that challenge on, Larry. In that challenge, yeah, go on. In that challenge, I hired 3 health and safety managers that had never done health and safety in construction. Indeed, had done very little health and safety. And I ended up hiring 36 safety officers. I had a team of 36, including the safety officers and safety supervisors. Now, within that, the safety managers, one was Canadian, was a metallurgist, scientist, never done health and safety, done an IOSH general certificate. One was a veteran who blew up bridges for a living. Another one was a graduate straight out of university with a fire management degree. And so I just used myself and hired them because of the people they were, and could see that they were people that could relate to other people. The health and safety, anybody can do health and safety. It takes a special person to be able to impart that knowledge onto people in a safe, knowledgeable and respectful way. And that's why they were hired. And then the 6 supervisors I stole them from the previous job I was on. 2 couldn't even speak English when I first met them and learned English in 3 months. And that is the power. They wanted it. They wanted to work for me. And they wanted to create an atmosphere where people could come to work safely, but genuinely they could talk to people. And remember, whether you like it or not, in that part of the world, there is a caste system. And it depends where you come from, North India, South India, wherever, there'll always be a caste system. And it's just the way life is. And I had a lot of people that were well respected that could speak to other people, and they weren't derogatory or disrespectful of other people. And that was part of the induction from me on day one. You will never raise your voice. You will never shout at someone. You will always speak respectfully, as if I'm speaking to you now. And that message was carried, Larry. I was lucky.
That's really that you said a lot in there, boy. So many things that I could comment on. I was a little horrified to see how some people treat other people. But there's a lot of them, like there's billions. So I'm not necessarily going to change all that overnight either. But getting beyond that, though, so that everybody is communicating is huge. And basically saying here are the rules for how you communicate as well too. Not the substance of the words you pick, but the tone, the manner with which you communicate over time is going to actually be the difference, right? The details, like you say, the details you can work out, especially, the actual health and safety stuff, but the being able to communicate about it is very difficult, because there's, you might get a laugh at this, but I was doing a lot of quality control training in the mid 80s, teaching people how to make, statistical process control charts and P charts and things like that. And you didn't have to be a good speaker. You didn't have to be funny. I mean, it's statistical process control, right? And so we got out this new behavior-based safety program we were going to be selling in Canada, and everybody said, oh, safety, quality, it's kind of the same thing, doing it right the first time. So we'll get Larry to go do this, right? So I'm thinking, I get up in front of these railroaders who've been like working at the railroad for 30, as longer than I've been alive, right? And I mean, I was standing up there, and I mean, probably had about 30 bullets in me before I even realized, like I was going to just die.
I've been in one of those meetings.
Stupid car to prevented Bill's fatality. This guy fell back. He was reefing on a big lug wrench. He fell backwards and unfortunately hit a 90-degree concrete corner just underneath his hard hat. And, I'm going in there with this process that's all about the rules and the procedures and the personal protective equipment standards, right? And these guys are just looking at me going, yeah, well, how had anything on your stupid car to prevented Bill's fatality? And I'm like, oh, I barely even know it's on the next overhead transparency, you guys. Leave me alone.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't like, your ability, like I didn't, unfortunately I learned it really painfully that day, but communicating about safety is almost an art in itself. To be able to do it, to get people beyond their, if you're stubborn beliefs and paradigms, self-defense, deflecting mechanisms and things like that, and actually get them to move in the right direction without a big stick. I mean, that's very, very it's very difficult to do. Now, these projects that you were working on, Jimmy, $7 billion is the figure that I remember in my head, but it might not be accurate.
That would be the total value of these projects.
How many people were on these projects?
Yeah. Well, the one of the projects that was valued, I mean, Ben Legg's on the call now. Ben Legg might be able to remember, because that's when I first met Ben. Good of him to let me know he'd just been made the global director for OVO. He could have offered me his job. Very nice of him. Thanks for that, Ben. But that job that we were on in Almeria Central was something like, I think it was around about 2 billion dirhams. And that was a massive job. And I mean, that was like 4 levels basement, 6 levels. I think we laid about 130,000 cubic meters of concrete in 12 months. It was unbelievable, that project. And we had 9,000 men a day on that project. You just couldn't make it up, Larry. And we had 36 people. We didn't have any electronic. We didn't have hot work permits in terms of electronic tablets that we do in the UK. Everything was paperwork. And you know what, Larry? That was a saving grace. We put too much faith in analog and digital. It's got its place, don't get me wrong. But when you're asking somebody to close out a hot works permit digitally, you've got to take their word for that. That's a scary thing for me. And as you know, in the Middle East, fires are the scariest thing, because once they start, they don't stop. And I had 12 of my staff, 3 each on 4 different areas of the job, would go to every single part and sign off every single job. We did 172 hot work permits, 170 plus hot work permits a day, daily, 6 days a week, Larry. And they were just there to do hot work permits and monitor the work. And then we promoted them and we gave them more courses and stuff. But yeah, that was how we did it. We did it in a very military fashion, but not formal. My new catchphrase is informally formal, formally informal. Work that one out as an academic. Informally formal.
Well, I know it sounds a bit oxymoronic to say we did it in a military fashion, but in a very friendly way. People be like, well, but it's not necessarily oxymoronic either, right? In other words, we did it. It was organized, it was disciplined, it was structured. But then as we went from there, we did it in a positive manner in the way we're interacting with the employees. So,
yes,
like, can you sort of, I just want people to kind of be able to get and you've said it already, but maybe just so that we're all clear, like the kind of the steps, you got there, you got your team together. The next step then was to go out and, if you could give me sort of the next 3 steps.
Yeah. So the next part was so we never got hired together. Over the period of 3 years, we hired and we hired and we hired and we hired. So the first person I hired was Trevor Kuninski, who comes out of Canada. Lovely chap. Next person I hired was John McFarlane, who used to blow things up, and then young Ryan, who was straight out of university. So I hired them over the period of sort of 9 months each one. So at the start, it was myself and Trevor. Then it was myself, Trevor, and John. Then I made John senior manager. He saw John. And then Ryan came in. I then stepped away and made Trevor the senior manager. John was HSE manager. Ryan was HSE manager. We then got the best 12 supervisors we had. We promoted them to senior supervisors or to supervisors, and then supervisors, and then we created that organogram more akin to a commanding officer in an army battalion. So it was all coming down all the way. So everybody was responsible for someone else. So Trevor would have 1/3 of the project, and he would have 1/3 of the safety officers, all the same, senior supervisor, down to safety officer. And he would control that team. Every day we'd have prayers. Every day and every night, we'd have morning prayers, we'd have evening prayers. In terms of, when I say prayers, I mean a briefing, because obviously in that part of the world you have morning and evening prayers. So
right,
yeah. But we used to have morning prayers and evening prayers. So we'd meet in the morning, have a coffee, discuss the whole day. We'd key into the operational team, which would never have been done before. So we understood what the operational team was doing. We had an amazing construction manager called Lee Ainsley, and we'd sit with him. I would sit with the senior construction manager, Dave Barnes, would sit with him. And everybody in my senior team knew what was going on. And that information came all the way down every day without fail, every evening without fail. And we just support each other. And we developed. So when the safety officer saw the next safety officer being promoted to supervisor, they wanted to be that supervisor. And the legacy here is, Larry, two of my managers now, Trevor and Ryan, are working in Canada for Multiplex still. Great jobs. John McFarlane is one of this has got an amazing job in Dubai. I can't remember who he's working for, but he stayed in Dubai. He's working there, recognized as an industry leader. And a lot of my safety officers didn't go back to India. Some of them have got jobs, not indeed in Canada, in the UK, and some of them are still in the Middle East, and some of them are now in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, working for companies like ACOM and Serco. So my job is done. And that legacy carries on, Larry, because they're still the same people, and they still come to me with advice. So it's wonderful.
Did you, Jimmy, any sort of, did you have, obviously you're doing inspections and things like that. It sounds like your supervisors were almost charged with the responsibility of walking around, looking at things and engaging their employees. Was there anything formal, like what somebody would call behavior-based safety process going on there? Was there anything like that you guys were using?
Not really. I mean, one of the sad things is, and you'll never change, is, that value. We're always seen as an overhead, aren't we? Health and safety team. So a lot of the stuff was done in-house by me. So a lot of it was a sort of Jimmy Quinn way. A lot of it was the IOSH way. I would use a lot of IOSH courses, a lot of IOSH slides, and we would teach we would go through every other Saturday. One of our managers would take the Saturday. So every third or fourth Saturday, I would do 3 hours with 12 of my safety officers, and we'd sit down and we'd talk, and we'd just go through scenarios. All of them spoke English, which was fantastic. Some of them spoke 3 or 4 different languages and half a dozen different dialects. And I would sit and we'd just go through IOSH stuff. We'd go through stuff that we've seen on the internet. One of the greatest ones I ever showed them, Larry, was the one with the gorilla and the basketball players. That was such an amazing day for them, because they got what inattention blindness was. So I was trying to teach them on inspections to use their eyes and use their ears. Be nosy. And I can still see myself doing it now. Be nosy. 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Just listen and hear, and be nosy and listen to things. And told them that when they've got that inattention blindness out the way, they will see things differently. So that first video that I did with the gorilla and the basketball players was an enlightening moment. To see their faces when they didn't even see the gorilla walking through the court was unbelievable. Inattention blindness.
I remember when they said, "Did you see the gorilla?" And I just went, "Oh, really? There was a gorilla?" Like, you'd think you would have saw that, Larry. You would. Want to say hi. Hector Salazar has joined us, Jimmy. He's
a seed as well.
Also another, I'd like to say friend of mine at this stage of the game, associate certainly, but he's managed a number of big projects in northern India at Batindra, again with very close to zero serious harm, and without a big stick as well. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us, Hector. Please feel free to ask Jimmy a couple questions as well, if you could. I think his comment was, "Command never die. This is a principle I manage with my team members. Our relationships beyond working invite the same company. Mr. Quinn, your military approach is actually key to mega project."
Thank you so much, Hector. That is absolutely fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Poor Hector's originally from Venezuela, Jimmy. That he's now Canadian, and we had 50 centimeters of snow.
My friend sent me a picture. It was unbelievable.
Couple days ago. So there's, if you picture this guy from Venezuela shoveling snow that's up to his chest, just so the windows in his house don't all break inwards. Anyhow, that's but he sure speaks English a lot better than I speak Spanish, that's for sure. So you didn't actually have a formal behavior-based observation process, Jimmy. Back then, human factors trainings, things like Safe Start really weren't available in that area, just barely available in North America at that time, really. So, no kind of formal approach in terms of managing the behavior, but was there a lot of informal stuff that you encourage your supervisors to do? I know a lot of the recognition is the reward in itself, but did you have any incentive programs or anything like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Tons of them every month, every week. We awarded, a lot of our workers obviously didn't speak English, and we used to bring them all into the office, and we'd give them, it was like 100 dirhams here, 200 dirhams.
How much is a dirham?
I think, well, golly, where's Ben Legg when you need them? I think 35 dirhams is around about a fiver. So if you're talking 100 dirhams, you're talking about 15 quid. Which we used to give out credit. We used to give out phone cards, which was the biggest currency. The guys didn't really particularly like Amazon stuff and all that. It was more, 100 dirham phone cards were gold dust. That's what they loved. And I'd have a load in my pocket, Larry, and I would walk around the site. And then again, it was just about calling everybody in as well. Whenever you saw good behavior, you stopped the job. Now, people don't like stopping jobs, but we stopped the job to show good behavior as well. Maybe 100 people sometimes, close them in and give the cards. And that there with the eyes was the win. To see which is perfect. Too easy. That's one minds, Larry.
That's exactly one of the things I remembered. That 100 people, for those of you listening, how many of you can imagine a construction project with 100 people stopping to recognize safe behavior? And I imagine a lot of you right now listening are going, "Well, I've never seen it, so
it happened every day. 9,000 people on that site every day, Larry. 9,000 every day, one site."
Yeah, unfortunately, we all get shown far too often from a negative point of view what gets attention, right? You're not getting to see the person, hanged from the highest tree anymore necessarily to make an example of them, but still, the negative pressure and then the pressure to cover up can become very destructive at a lot of places, even if, at the senior level, they think they're giving the right message, right? And it's very key for these senior leaders to realize that the right message has got to be delivered positively, or it will likely backfire on you, right? Now, you say to a lot of COOs, CFOs, we stopped the job to recognize safe behavior. I think their paradigm isn't that what we're paying them for? Isn't that expected? Why would you shut a job down? And that's when I look at them and say, so it's not so black and white, is it?
Exactly. Well said, Larry. I mean, I wish I had you on my shoulder sometimes when I'm having those sort of conversations, because I'm never, when I sit and think about something, I'm very good. But when I'm sort of on the spot for responses, as you've just said there, well, it's not exactly black and white, is it? I wish I could think of those responses sometimes when I am put on the spot like that. But you're absolutely right. Health and safety.
Well, sometimes you got to be careful how you say it too, like, because
there's always been my.
Here's another example. Well, another example of not black and white is you can test people at the gate, literally, to see if they're impaired based on their baseline. Like, there's technology out there to do it. It doesn't tell you what they're impaired on, but it would sense fatigue, extreme fatigue, because it'll cause impairment, mental slowness, and so on, right? You got to code things in or answer questions based on your baseline. But if you come to work and you're super tired or groggy, you won't be able to pass your own baseline. And I've heard senior executives say, and if they have a safety sensitive job inside the plant or inside the smelter, then we can't let them go in and work on a safety sensitive job. The liability is just too high. And I'm going, yeah, but then what are they going to do? They're going to get in their car and they're going to drive home, which has more statistical risk than anything you've got inside those four walls. And you're not going to be able to stop that very easily, because he drove to work or she drove to work. And then you're going to go and tell everybody that you really care about their safety 24/7. It doesn't matter when they get hurt. We're just trying to keep you from getting hurt. And that's when I look at them and say, so it's not so black and white, is it?
Brilliant.
Your lawyers might say it's black and white, and if you don't do this, we can't defend you. But obviously, if the guy dies on the way home and or takes somebody else out with them, you had a hand in that.
Now we've got a different conversation as well, Larry, because I think I've said this many times as well, is that the words, and this is a totally different program now, you've just touched on something that's very, very close to my heart. The words health and safety don't mean a lot to a lot of people these days. Words like honesty, respect, trust, truthfulness, they're the words. Sorry if I made you choke there, Larry, but they're the words.
No, I was just thinking about where I was when this happened was on an expert panel on stage, and I thankfully for once bit my tongue and self-triggered when I needed to, instead of saying what I just said, which is, you're going to drive home. Now what are you going to do, right? Come on,
It's about trust,
don't make it
honesty,
so simple.
competency.
But I think that it is simple in terms of, if, like what you said before, hearts and minds. If your supervisors and managers have their hearts in the right place, that what they say will be consistent or congruent with that, the people will see, they'll see through right to the truth, and they'll believe it. And absolutely, as long as you're doing enough of enough things that they can see that are believable. I said, like the phone card thing, I really like that. That
was brilliant. That wasn't me. That was one of my senior supervisors, a chap called Abdul Rahman, and he said, boss, he said, not don't forget the dirhams, forget lunches, forget all that. I mean, every week I used to buy all my staff members who were brilliant. I used to buy them at Kentucky, and they absolutely love Kentucky, and I love Kentucky Fried Chicken, so it was an excuse for me. My wife used to go crazy, and I'd buy hundreds and hundreds of dirhams worth of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we would sit and eat on a Friday afternoon every Friday, and it was absolutely wonderful. But he said, boss, when a mouthful of Kentucky Fried Chicken one day, he said, no, he said, phone cards. That is the difference. And it was Abdul that said as well, I must admit, he said, boss, if you get 50, 60 people together and you give that phone card, just see what happens. And it was perfect. So again, it wasn't a Jimmy Quinn show. It was a collaborative effort, Larry. Brilliant.
Wow.
And can I just say one thing, Larry? Can I just say one more thing? When I came back to the UK and I was at the Chelsea Barracks project at Chelsea, one of the first things I did in my first week there was I got every single operative, and there was 100 of them, and we gave them all ice lollies, and this was in the UK. And how well was that received in July 2019? So it doesn't matter where you are. Everybody loves a pat on the back. They love some positive reinforcement, as Ben just said there as well, and they love to be treated with kindness and respect. That's a magical formula.
Yeah. I think, I mean, again, it's not things. If you can ever get something that I'll just call it metaphorically now, the phone card. Those things do, like, every now and again you run, like, it's not a substitute for the positive communication and for other things. But every now and again, if you can get your hands literally on something like that, don't pass it up, right?
100%.
You're not always going to be able to get something like that. But if you do find something, for heaven's sakes, you use it best you can. I found, like coloring, Boo Boo Bandit coloring books and things like that. People, stuff they could take home for their kids, things like that. It was really, really well received. Michelle, I think put in a comment. I'm not sure about the Ben leg part of maybe, but a glass half full or glass half empty situation. If you have a negative team leader, manager, it rubs off on the team members. Same if you have a negative, not interested company. Positive actions have to be led from the top. But I think also in that you need to make sure people see the positive actions as well too, and you also need to make sure that they don't see through the positive actions to nothing on the other side, because they will. It's got to. Of course they will. Yeah. I mean, it's also, the other thing about health and safety too, Jimmy, is that people's BS meter is on like high micron alert, when it comes to health and safety, because I think, I'm not sure why folks have sort of such skepticism or negativity about it. I've heard it before. Nothing's changed. I'm not sure, but I think you have to be very careful when you're communicating with people about health and safety, about, what you're going to say, keeping it positive. Now, what about when you did have to sort of, if you will, remove somebody or, despite all your positive efforts, Jimmy, not everybody's going to fall in line. So how'd you handle that part without knocking the whole apple cart over?
No, yeah, I mean, we had a safety officer who wasn't what we thought he was going to be, and what his route was that he just wanted to make people look bad, and unfortunately, he came in with about 12 months of the project left to go. And when you've got a team as close knit as that eat together every Friday, which was wonderful. Obviously, apart from when they were fasting, but when we were eating it together every Friday, it was something that we did. Everybody was there, and then to come in and start sniping and all that sort of thing. So basically, I did not take this one on. Basically, I put this to Trevor, and I got Trevor, and I said, Trevor, what do you think? And he said, well, our supervisors believe that he's doing this and he's doing that, and he's not doing his work, and he's being derogatory to other people. And I says, well, what do you want to do? He says, well, can we move him to another part of the job? I said, yeah, that's fine. Let's change teams then. So we changed teams, and of course, the same person was doing the same things. So eventually, we didn't just sack him and say, right, go, off you go, and just sack him, which in the UAE, he'd only been there a few months. We could have done. We sent him off on his way. We gave him another week's salary, and we asked him to leave the job, and it was as simple as that. And we offered, though, to speak to him, but he believed that he wasn't doing anything wrong. He believed he was in the right. But when you've got a team that have been working so closely, working for each other, this person should have really come in and tried to work with the team and work even harder, but was always absent, wasn't coming into work. And he was just someone that wasn't part of what we were doing. And he was disrespectful to our operatives as well, which we witnessed, which wasn't good as well. So unfortunately, you do have some people that don't see the same picture as you. And we with respect, we said you weren't good enough for our team. And we actually said that you weren't a good fit for the team and you would have to move on. And he came super qualified as well, but just wasn't interested in health and safety. All he was interested in was being above someone else and being not a nice person. And of course, we didn't want that.
Yeah. Well,
sometimes you can either call it a fail or you can say it was a development for me and it was a bit of development and learning. So I took it on as a bit of learning, Larry, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it just, despite the most positive efforts, it's like 100%.
Every opportunity, more than one opportunity. It just wasn't.
And you're not going to get everybody. So I mean, this is what I've heard before is you make all of the attempts you can. You try your best to sort of see if, a little nudge, a little push, they'll come back in between the white lines. But if not, I think, in the interest of not negatively affecting all the other effort to get where you are, you've got to let them go.
But we couldn't send him on his way, Larry. Sorry, Larry. Yeah, we couldn't send him on his way without informing of where he was lacking and where he's. And I don't like negative. I did say you've got some great strengths, Larry, but some of you've got some real areas for development here, and you need to look at these areas of the development because you're not going to last long in many jobs. So we sent him off with some decent feedback, and whether he took that one or not, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, again, you're doing even with the folks who aren't doing the right things, you're trying to do the right things, which I think is admirable. But I've heard from so many people that, that's all, that's all well and good, Larry, if you're running, workers that aren't transient, not contractors. You've got a permanent workforce within four walls. You can control all this stuff and so on and so forth. The only way to manage construction is with a big stick. That's the way it is. You've spent too much time with these wonderful state-of-the-art companies where, they can't remember the last time they had a serious injury and so on and so forth. You've strayed too far from your, your logging and your pipelining and the oil rigs where you started out and all the rest of it. Remember back then, the railroading world and stuff, what was it really like in the bush with the guy, I'm like, that's not really true. I found the guys that were out in the bush with the 3-foot chainsaws had the best sense of personal responsibility that I've ever run into, with maybe the exception of iron workers. I always thought the iron workers were hilarious. They talked about mistakes. They didn't talk about the hazard. I said, why not? He said, do you expect us every morning to get up and have a pre-shift briefing about the gravity? The gravity can kill you just like yesterday. No, we don't talk about the gravity. Okay. We know about the gravity, but we know about making mistakes. And, it was like, they gave me this group to train because they didn't even want to talk to them, the host company. And I found them actually kind of one of the most illuminating, and like same thing with the hand loggers, because if you step on a moss hole or a sinkhole out there in the bush, it's your broken leg. That's all there is to it. Right? So there's a much greater sense of responsibility I found for folks out there, not so much in like inside the four walls. What you don't have, or what you do have that you don't have at a construction site, is a sense of entitlement to utopia. And nobody's expecting utopia out there in the construction site at all, too. Like, you should have bubble packed my work area so that no matter what I did, I couldn't get hurt. The
the commercial team used to hate me, Larry. And when I say, hate's a horrible word, I'm funny. They used to, oh, Jimmy, really? And one of my closest friends now is a guy called Derek Lynch, ex-Multiplex, executive director commercial for Multiplex Middle East. Wonderful, wonderful man, Scotsman like myself. We set up areas in summer where people could go and sleep in areas on the site with water fans, just throwing dew over them. We created, it cost something like 50 million dirhams to build a welfare area on site with canteen, cooking, eating areas. It was just unbelievable. The commercial team loathed me when I turned up at the door for that exact same reason as well, just to make things a lot easier for all our workers. And yeah, it was good, mate.
Remember Hector said on the show, we talked about fatigue risk management a couple of nights ago in the Safe Connection panel in India and the Middle East. And he said he got them tea and he said he brought the food in and got them tables and things so they could cook their own food because they like that better. And I thought, there's a culture shock because we kind of want our food cooked for us or something like that in North America.
Here's a culture shock. Sorry, Larry, here's a culture shock. Not knowing that there's different types of Indian food. Now that was me being very ignorant because I thought a curry was a curry and rice was rice. Oh no. Many different areas of India, all different curries, all different rice, all different food, all different vegetables, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, chicken, beef. Oh, the food was fantastic. I used to eat all the time. It's wonderful.
Oh, I know. But whenever I'm in India, Sarah Vanakumar has to go around with me and he has to point at all the things in the buffet. This okay for you, Mr. Larry? Not this, very bad. Telling me all the things because some of the stuff obviously just far too spicy.
My favorite food is Hyderabad chicken. It's absolutely stunning. Hyderabad chicken. It's North Indian dish. It's beautiful. Anyway, sorry, Larry. I digress.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm just thinking about that huge mosque in Hyderabad. It's incredible structure. That park there. Yeah. Anyhow, Jimmy, we're over time, and I know I could talk to you for another hour, no problem. Let me just have a quick check here. Are there any questions, Mike, that I've missed getting up to Jimmy, or that we've missed getting up to Jimmy?
My good friend Michelle Pitkin's there. She's been very busy.
Yeah.
Nick has, and Keith's in there as well, which is lovely. Good to see you, Keith.
Okay. We've had you've answered most of them, and a lot of it's just been great comments and great idea sharing. So lots of people saying thank you for this episode. So thanks a lot, Jimmy. Thanks, Larry.
Oh no, and thank you, Mike, for filling in when Jimmy's internet went in there down for a second, and thank you all for staying with us or hanging in. Jimmy, again,
thank you. Larry, so much for your time, Larry.
Oh, no, thank you. And I should just, everybody, February 3rd at the same time, next show is with Dave Johnson. He is, he's with Industrial Safety and Hygiene News. He was the editor for many, many years. I've known Dave for many, many years. All through the behavior-based safety wave. He knows, if you will, all of the gurus and the thought leaders in safety, HOP, Safety Differently, so on. And kind of like the show that I did with Keith Hall, we're gonna get Dave's perspective in terms of separating the wheat from the chaff. And just for those of you out there, part of it isn't it's not all false charlatans and fake gurus and thought leaders. There's a bit of supply side economics that drives something new, the new shiny thing every quarter or every year, and an expectation that is then created from the media and the conference people, which eventually becomes the expectation of the audience. So I've had some of these guys just look at me and say, Larry, I got to make a living. I got to keep a roof over my head. What do you want me to do? And you realize that they're kind of stuck in that spot as well, too. So once again, Jimmy, it's not all black and white. There's a lot of gray area. And unfortunately, what happens here is that you get a lot of chaff, not necessarily so much wheat. And maybe it is not all the fault of the people purveying it. But for those of you listening, nevertheless, you still have to separate the wheat from the chaff and figure out what's good and what should be disregarded, what you need to see proven, and what isn't proven already that might just sound good, and so on, right? So Dave's perspective on this
I'll
is
tell you
very...
this, Larry. As long as a shark has got a waterproof head, I'll remain true to what I do because it works.
Very well said. Very well said. All right. So hopefully we'll see most of you back, if not all of you back, February the 3rd with Dave Johnson. Jimmy, thank you again so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Larry. Bye, Mike.
Okay.
Bye, all.
Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
so much. See you soon. Bye. Wonderful.